worship leaders. And I think Jay and Alvin already shared this, but Kristen, Kristen was, she's an OG ambassador member. Not only that, her dad, Pastor Ray, is the one who planted Ambassador Church, right, from the very beginning. And so Kristen here, you guys may not know her, maybe some of you guys do, but she was here from the very, very beginning. And before there was a Lauren Hahn, before there was a Megan Chow, before there was a Micah, there was Kristen, right? And she was the worship leader for Ambassador Youth 50,000 years ago. And so, and so she was an incredible worship leader. She was here when I started at Ambassador, when I was a youth intern. So I was like Alvin, and Kristen was one of the leaders. So she was one of the key leaders of Ambassador Youth Group. And so this is a huge honor for me to have her here, for y'all to really know Kristen and even Danny as well, right? For Danny, I'm like low-key like fanboying, right? Because I knew Danny because I randomly came across a Sanctified Vessels like worship video, right? I'm just like doing homework, and I would just like scroll through like YouTube, and I would just like listen to worship music in the background. And then I saw this video of a song called Look Back, right, by Sanctified Vessels. So I'm like, oh, this is interesting. So I clicked on it, and it was so good, right? It was a great song. And I got so hooked, and I kind of went down this rabbit trail. And I would see Danny in a lot of the videos, and he's an incredible worship leader, right? And he's awesome. And I got to see him lead at Biola too, for missions conference? Right, missions conference. And some of you guys may have seen him at Encounter OC too when we went, right? And so yeah, he's an awesome worship leader, as you guys know from this morning and last night as well, right? And so like I said, we're gonna go ahead and hop in because I wanted to give this opportunity for Danny and Kristen to kind of share and drop some knowledge on y'all. But I just kind of want to start off with a pretty light and fun question for both of you guys. What led you to become a worship leader, and who are people that inspired you?
All right. For me, I actually started literally kind of like where you guys are at. I started worship when I was in youth group as well, when I was 12. And I knew nothing about music or anything like that. But there was just a need. I grew up in very like church plant DNA. And so I always grew up with like 8 to 10 other youth kids. And we just grew up like brothers and sisters. And we just decided to try to create our own worship team. And our pastor during that time was like, hey, I believe in you guys. Just do it. And so we just started looking up different videos. And during that time, does anyone know like School of Rock?
Dude, we saw it as a youth group actually.
That's literally one of my favorite movies.
It's good, right?
I grew up watching that, and so that was like our inspiration. I don't know if that was the right inspiration. It was our inspiration during youth group of like, oh my gosh, like we need to play this song, right? And so that's kind of just like how I got started. I just started like dabbling in different instruments, and my pastor during that time just taught me like 4 chords. G, C, E minor, and D. And we're like, okay, we're going to play every song in G, C, E minor, and D, even if it doesn't work. We just fit the melody into the chord, you know? And so that's just kind of like how I got started. And then one thing led to another, and then I just kept doing it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, so for Biola, you do worship as well, right? Like, is that what you study as well?
Yeah, so I majored in worship.
Yeah.
In high school, I was still unsure of what I wanted to do during that time. And so I was really, I wanted to get into like production, like producing, making my own beats and stuff. And I was doing that. And I told my mom, because she was an opera major. And so she's like in that music space too. And I was like, Mom, like I want to do this music thing. Yeah. But it wasn't for worship. I was like, I want to go into pop music and I want to make some bangers, right? And my mom, she's just very realistic with me. she's always been that way. Like, even when I sucked at sports, she's like, yeah, this ain't it. But I was like, oh my gosh, like, Mom, that's kind of mean. And I told her, I'm like, I want to do it. And she was like, yeah, you're not good enough. I was like, oh, I got so hurt. And then I processed for like a year. I was like, oh, do I really want to do this? And then I just decided, I really love music, but I think more than the music, I actually love people. And so I was like, is there anything that serves both people and music? And I've done worship all my life. And then I think as I was just praying, it just kind of clicked. And so I started looking around. And that's how I ended up at Biola.
Wow, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question because I think a lot of kids can probably like relate to this, right? But like, how did your parents respond to that? Like, what was their like reaction? Like, hey, Mom and Dad, I want to go to Biola to pursue worship.
You know, it's weird because all my life, ever since I was like, I feel like, yeah, my parents were like, you need to become a pastor.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh, no way. There's no way I'm going to be a pastor, right? So when I told them that I was going into ministry, I'm a PK, but I'm a double PK. Both my parents are pastors. Woo. And so I grew up with double the trauma. I'm just joking. Yeah, both my parents are pastors. And so when I told them I wanted to do ministry, they were actually very supportive.
Wow,
yeah,
that's good.
And so I would tell all my friends, and they would be like, "Wow, like that's crazy." Because all my other ministry friends, all their parents were like against it.
Wow, really? Dang, dude, that's so sick.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow. So like, who taught you like how to play? You play like every single instrument that exists to man, right? And so like, who taught you how to play all these things? So your pastor taught you how to play the 4 chords?
Yeah, guitar, and then I kind of just taught myself as I like went.
Wow, really?
Yeah, so I started off on drums, learned a little bit of guitar, and then like keyboard. Like I just surrounded myself with people who loved music just as me, and then I would just like study them.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, why did you play that there? And then I would just go back home and then try to like fiddle around with it.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it doesn't sound as good. I don't know what's going on. And then I think just over time, like I just kept doing it, and then I just learned.
Dude, you're like really good, man. You're like literally everything. You're like super good. That's like, I was super impressive. Kristen, Kristen, what about you? Like, how did you get started? I actually wasn't here when you started like worship. Like, you were already a worship leader at the time, right? So I don't know the origin story. So like, how did you get started? Like, who were people that inspired you? And what was your journey like?
Yeah. So well, first I feel so old because I feel like I'm looking at some of you guys like Kylan and Kirsten and Timmy, and I feel like I used to babysit you guys when you guys were like tiny, and Kirsten, I used to teach you soccer when you were younger.
No.
So I feel so old. But then I basically started when I was in like 6th grade. But then at this time, Ambassador was really small. Our youth group maybe had like 4 kids. Me, my sister, and then 2 other siblings. And so it was just us 4. And so our first youth pastor came in. His name was Pastor Daniel. I don't know if you guys have met him before. But then when he came in, he was kind of encouraging, like, guys, we should, like, you know, have worship on Sundays and, like, let's try to practice and make a team and all that kind of stuff. But then I was, like, the only one who, like, played an instrument. So my instrument was keys or piano because I did, like, CM. So that was, like, the only credibility I had. But I did CM. Right, I know, it's trauma.
This is actually a therapy session right now.
No, yeah, it feels like a therapy session. But then, yeah, so I did CM, and then so I knew how to play the piano, and so my youth pastor was like, okay, you're on the keys. And I was like, I don't even know how to play, like, worship chords. I don't even know what that looks like, or I don't know what that means. He's like, it's okay, just try. So I was like, okay. And then it was him on the guitar, and there was someone else. Her name was Bethany. She was singing. And so Bethany Choi,
that's Nathaniel's sister, if you guys don't know, the drummer for our youth
group. So it was literally me, our pastor, and then Bethany just leading every single Sunday for our group of 4 kids in our youth group. So honestly, there was just 1 kid.
There were more people on the praise team.
Yeah, there were more people on the praise team than actual in our youth group. But then that's...
There are like 2 students in the congregation.
Yeah. But that's how we started. And then over the years, our youth group just started to expand more and more. And then that's when we opened up the Anaheim campus as well. And so, because we just started at Brea for a long time. And then so yeah, after that, our youth group started to expand, and then we started kind of recruiting more people who wanted to join the team. And then our youth pastor would just kind of like teach all of us how to play. And it sounded really bad in the beginning. Like, we didn't really know what we were doing. And on Sundays, too, we would leave with like a janky keyboard that like half the keys weren't even working at the time, too. And so it was just like really messy. But I think it was so fun, too, because when we would like come and practice, I think that was like one of the pivotal moments for me when I really got close with a lot of my other friends in the youth group. Because before, I feel like church was something that I just came to because I grew up in the church as a PK, and I'm sure like a lot of you go to church because your parents are going as well. But then I think for me, once I was actually plugged in and actually like serving the youth group, I feel like that's when I started building a relationship with not only my friends and my pastors, but also like I think my relationship with God also strengthened like crazy too. Yeah, because fellowship is super important, and I think that's one way to really grow with other people. Yeah, and so that's kind of how I started. It was pretty rough. Yeah, and over the years, I think once like we went to Anaheim, I met Tim and all that kind of stuff. That's when we started really trying to like tune up this like tune up our team a little bit, and lead for like main service on Sundays, and then lead worship nights and stuff like that during my high school years. Yeah,
dude, I just have flashbacks. As you were like saying all that, I just had flashbacks of like the Brea campus. We had to like set up every Sunday, right? Because like we rented the space in the Civic Center, so we had to tear down and set up every single. That was exhausting, dude. So when we got to Anaheim, like thank God, we saved like an hour like every Sunday. That's awesome. So I wanted to ask another question for y'all is, what is worship to you? Now this is like a loaded question, right? And so I'm just very curious because like you guys are driven, like you guys do this for a reason, right? There's a why behind what you guys do, and I wanted to kind of ask you guys like at the core of what you do, like what is worship to you? Like above all this, like what is worship?
Yeah. I'll just separate it into like two responses. I think one, which is like a little more spiritual. I think it's kind of just like a response, right? I think like the best way that I can explain it is like when you've been like so impacted by someone, and let's say someone gave you an amazing gift, or they've just been the best friend or the best teacher, you just respond so naturally. Right, you just go like, oh my gosh, like, why would you like do that for me? Like, I didn't even know that like you were thinking of me like that. Like, thank you so much. And then when other people ask you like, hey, like, what do you know about this person? And if they're like not a good friend, you're like, yeah, I don't really want to talk about it, But if there's someone who really impacted, it's almost like, oh, like they're amazing. Like I love hanging out with them. Like when I'm with them, I just feel so happy, right? And I think worship for me is a lot of times we think about, oh, what can God do for me moving forward? But I think sometimes I just think to myself, like, how faithful has God already been in my life? And let me respond to that, right? Obviously, no one's life is perfect, but I think there's been moments and highlights in my life where I just can't explain it any other way than that was God. So I think that's like the spiritual aspect of like it's a response. And then I think the other way, I think like a lot of times people think like worship is just like music, right? It's just like, oh, like let's raise our hands and sing some kumbaya, right? Yeah. But I think worship is a lot more than that. I think if I could like break it down, I think like I always like to like systematize things. That's just the way my brain works. I think for me, worship is not just music. It's more of a lifestyle, and it bleeds into everything that you do. And so like I think if I can. What worship is to me, if I could break it down to three parts, I think it's posture, I think it's excellence, and it's consistency. And I think this is applicable to anything that you guys do, because not everyone here is going to be playing like worship music, right? Exactly. You guys might be in the engineering space, you guys might be in the art space, the math space. I would never touch that space, right? Whatever it is, but I think just to break it down, I think posture is always doing it with the right heart. God, like whatever I do, I want to do unto you. And honestly, like for me too, like I don't even fully know what that means, right? It's like, what does it mean to do it with the right heart unto God? But I think it's the thought process of like, I want to be able to give you all the glory, and I want to be able to do it right. I think so. It starts with your posture. I think second thing is, I told you guys I played GC, E minor, and D. That's all I knew, right? A lot of times, what people would tell me is that's all you need to know, right? And so I believed that for so many years, and I just had a moment of like, man, like if I really want worship, right, to sound excellent, and this is my offering to God, how come I'm not trying harder? How come I'm not trying to become better? How come I'm not trying to be the best that I can be? If all the secular musicians out there are doing amazing things, why are Christian musicians slacking off?
Wow.
Like, if I'm serving not just the king, but the king of all kings, then shouldn't I be the best at what I do? And I had a moment where excellence became a part of my value for worship. Is I don't want to just do worship. I don't want to just do X, Y, and Z just because I know how to do it. I want to become the best at it. And obviously, like, there's always going to be someone better than you. But I think it always starts with my number one, your posture. My desire, my posture is, God, I want to give you the best that I can give you, right? And I think that's excellence. And it took me years, guys. Like, I spent hours and hours practicing on the keyboard, guitar lessons, and there were so many things that I didn't want to do, but it always starts with your why. Why am I here? Why am I doing this, right? Who am I doing it for? And when you have your direction and your why, all of a sudden, everything that you do, you start doing it with purpose. So excellence was my value number 2, I think, with worship. And I think value number 3 was consistency. I think everyone knows here, we all go through highs and lows, right? When it's good, like, it's good. But when it's tough, it's like, yo, like, I'm trying to go to heaven early, you know? Like, dude, this is tough, right? But I think what I've noticed, I've had a lot of worship friends and a lot of gifted individuals. And when I look back or when I look around me, they're not really as around anymore. And I think one of the things that they lacked the most was actually consistency. It's easy to give your best when things are good, but can you give your best when things are bad? Right? And I think that's applicable to everything. When youth group energy is great, all right, let's serve. I love Ambassador. But when the energy is down, everyone's like, yo, Ambassador. Yeah. Like, you know, or it's like even at school, your friendships with your family. But what about with your craft? What about with worship, with music, with academics, with art, with anything that you guys are doing? When the energy's high, it's easy to give your best. But I think what I've realized is when I've been able to be faithful, when times are low, and I'm just consistent, and I just have this mindset of, okay, just one step at a time, one day, just 1 week, 1 month, 1 year. All of a sudden, I look back and I'm like, oh, I actually went through a lot. I overcame a lot. And I think even that is my worship to God. So I think it starts with my posture, giving my best in excellence, and just being consistent through everything, through relationships, through my craft. And I think all of that is my worship to God.
Wow. I love what you said, Danny, because like a lot of like the students here, I think, and even for me, I think we all kind of go through it in high school or middle school. Like we want to do well because the why is like the end goal is college, right? Go to the best college, and after college, like we want to get a good job because we want more money. Right? More money equals more security, and that becomes like our why, right? But I love what you said because like the why that you just said is much greater than everything what the world has to offer, right? The why is to pursue excellence because that's what we're called to do, right? And this is our worship to God, like offering our best to Him, and I hope that like that is a statement that kind of sticks with all of you guys because I know like, dude. Like, I hear your guys' weeks, every single week I hear what you're stressing out about. I hear the same thing, right? And it's because of the why. Like, you're stressed because, you know, if you mess up on a test, that means, like colleges aren't going to like that. Parents aren't going to like that. And that kind of becomes your identity, right? But I hope, dude, Danny just dropped some deep, good wisdom right there. That was so good. And Kristen, I'm gonna turn to you. Like, what is worship? What is worship to you?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know if I could top answer. It was really good. But yeah, I think everything he said, I completely agree with. Another thing I would probably add to, it's like, I think it's a form of communing with God. It's a form of communication. I think oftentimes, sometimes it's hard to talk to God. Sometimes it's hard to even be with Him. Like, I don't know if you guys ever been in a space where like you just can't open up your Bible. Like, you just can't worship. You can't pray. You can't. It's really hard. Like, it feels like it's just like it feels dead. And I think in moments like that, I think, like he was saying, that worship is an offering. Like, whether you feel it, like you want to do it or not. I actually had a moment recently, actually this past year. I was going through a really hard season, and I woke up on a Sunday morning and I was like, I can't go to church today. Like, I can't come because I literally one I didn't want to. One, I was like, I feel nothing. I feel really depressed. I feel really sad. I feel like, what's the point in going to a service on a Sunday when, like, I have nothing to even offer to God? I have nothing to even say. I feel like very hopeless. And anyways, I got ready and I was kind of late. I went to church that morning and I sat there. I literally just sat there. And during worship time, I didn't stand up. I didn't sing. I just sat in my seat. And I was like, okay, God, this is where I'm at. This is the season that I'm in right now. I feel like I have nothing to offer you, but here I am. And here I am just to give you all of this. What the little that I have to offer, this is what I have to give to you. And in that moment, I started breaking down like crazy, because I think I felt so much grace even over that time. I think I felt so much grace that it was okay that I didn't have anything to offer, that I didn't have much to give. But even in that moment, I felt like the Lord was so pleased with me. I felt like He was just looking at me and just being like, I love you. You're my daughter and I love you so much. You don't have to do X, Y, and Z to come to me, but just reflect on my goodness and my love for you and what I did on that cross. And I think it just, as I was reflecting, I was just like, wow, like, this is what worship is too. One, it's like, maybe this is just my form of communication with God. Like, I just sit there and I'm just like, okay, God, like, all I have to do, like, I just have no words to say, but all I can do is just listen. And then in that process of listening, and just hearing from Him, I feel like He's also so pleased in the midst of that. And so I think, yeah, to I guess wrap it up, another form of worship for me is just, offering even the little that I have, and just giving that up to Him. And I think the Lord has so much more in store than we could ever think or imagine. Even in that moment too, I didn't think that there was anything that was going to happen or anything that, like, I thought I was just going to walk out of there the same. I thought I was just going to walk out of there just feeling still hopeless, still feeling depressed, still feeling really sad. But I think in that moment too, He showed me like, oh wow, he does have so much in store for me if I just press in a little. If I just press in and be like, okay, God, I want you to do something. I want you to show me you're here, and I want to be open to receive, and I want to be humble enough to receive whatever you have to offer and to give, but also in that place being like, Lord, I also offer myself to you. I also offer the little that I have to you, whatever I can give. But yeah, I feel like in those moments it's very healing. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I love what you said about like the literally the last thing you said, right? Like, worship to you was healing, right? And I think that's why, like, last night, dude, like in our guys' small group, dude, we had a very vulnerable moment. Like, we all cried. I think we all cried, and it was so beautiful, right? And it's because like a lot of healing was taking place, and I know that for a lot of you guys, like, crying can be hard, right? Crying can be hard. It could be an awkward thing, but it actually brings a lot of healing, right? And so let me just ask you guys this one more question, and I want to open up the floor for y'all. If you guys have any questions for Danny or Kristen, I kind of wanted to let you guys have a chance to ask some questions as well. So let me just ask you one more question. Let me pick one. I had a couple more. Okay, let's do the. How have you personally experienced the power of worship? How have you experienced the power of worship?
I feel like for me, it's weird because I feel like it really just feels like the foundation of who we're called to be. I kind of like mentioned like the highs and lows. Like, there's so many seasons where, as a high schooler, your values and your priorities are one thing. And then when you go to college, all of a sudden you enter into a space where you're meeting all these different people. And you're like, oh shoot, like, I gotta kind of like level up. Like, I gotta become better at what I do. Like, I gotta start thinking about like, what do I want to do for my job? I gotta start thinking about internships, right? And then you enter into young adult, and then all of a sudden you're like, dang, I'm so lonely. I lost all my friends. I'm just like, now I'm just working, right? And I'm like, I'm coming back home, I'm going to sleep. I'm doing the same thing, it's so depressing, right? And then you get married and then it's awesome. And then you have kids and you're like, I have no freedom. I'm just, because I have so many friends that are in their 30s with all kids. And they're like, by 8 p.m. they're like, oh, we're going back home. I'm like, dude, that sucks. And then your kids get older and then you hit 50, you midlife crisis. You're like, what have I done my whole life? Like, did I waste my whole life? And then you just die? Like, what the, like, for me, that sounds so depressing. Like, what am I living for, right? And for me, I'm currently 25, about to be 26 soon. And I think, like, when I think about, like, no matter, like, where you go, there always needs to be, like, a starting place, a starting point where you come back, right? When you go to retreat, right, it's all fun. But at the moment you go back to your starting place, which is home, you just crash, you knock out. Because you're like, oh my God, that was fun, but I need to rest, right? You go to school, you come back home, right? You go hang out with your friends, you come back home. You go on a family vacation, you come back home. And I think that's what worship needs to be, is you go through these seasons of life, but you got to come back home. You got to come to the place where God has called you. You go to all these things, you go to college, but you gotta worship in college. You become a young adult, but you gotta have your foundation in worship. So I think more than worship being this crazy, emotional encounter, I think it just has to be your foundation. At least that's kind of like what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I resonate with that. Yeah. Kristen, how have you personally experienced the power of worship?
Yeah, I could share something. I think for me, one thing I really value just in my own walk with God is my secret time with Him. Is getting into the secret place. And I think that term secret place gets thrown around a lot too in like the Christian world. But then for me, what that looks like is just, I have like a room in my office that it's literally just a corner of my room, and I just sit there and I just sit. And sometimes I just wait for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. With the guitar, without a guitar, just wait and just say, God, I'm here. Whenever you want to share. I ask that you come and meet me. I want to know you more, and I want to know you deeply. But yeah, so in my secret time with God, I feel like those were the most transformative moments for me, in terms of like worshiping in those times and in those moments. Yeah, I think oftentimes, like, I could just sit there, like, I think worship for me is just showing up, too. Like, worship for me is not necessarily, like, having a song to sing all the time, or knowing how to play any instrument, because I think people who don't know how to play instruments, you guys can worship just the same as anyone else. And so for me, just showing up, like I said before, He has so much in store when we show up. And so I think worship is just me putting down myself and being like, whether or not I feel like I want to, I'm going to show up and come, and I want to be in your presence. yeah, and I think in many ways, like those moments have been very, very, very healing for me as well. Yeah, I feel like the more you get older too, just the more life you live and the harder it gets. The more fun it gets too. There's great moments too, but I think in many ways I've experienced a lot of hardship in the past few years. And so just coming to that time with the Lord has been so healing for me. Yeah, and I think it doesn't take much to try. Like you just pick a spot, or it could be in your kitchen or in your room or anywhere on the stairs, and just ask God to come and ask God to come meet you, and He's already there. And so yeah, I think I've received a lot just by showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I want to throw it on to the floor. Does anyone have any questions for Danny and Kristen? Anything? Yeah, Noel.
Am I getting the mic?
Yes, you are.
Oh, okay. I'm just kind of curious, like, how did like being a pastor's kid like affect your faith, both like negatively and like positively?
Whoa,
Going for the throat.
No.
Going for the throat.
Hey, Noel, you sit right here, man. I don't know what I'm doing here. What am I doing? Dang, yo, we're going there. We're going there. That's a great question. Hey, no, that's a good question. I'm so glad you asked that question. Good job, Noel.
You could go first.
Yeah, so my parents planted a church when I was 15, and then we did it for like 4 years, so 15 through 19, but we didn't have really anyone. So when I was 18, I basically became the youth pastor, and I grew up in LA, K-Town. So like the environment everyone was just depressed. Like everyone had no parents, and if they did, they were like so abusive. So it was just a really tough environment. But like I wanted to get my kids saved like so bad. But I think like it was more difficult in the sense where I think there were just like certain expectations that were put onto me from my parents. Where like for me it was like I never asked to start a church plant, right? Yeah. Like I didn't sign up. Like I was forced, right? And it's like almost like this this title was just put onto me, and now I have to like live out as a pastor. Like I just have to live out as a youth leader. Like I'm not even a volunteer. Like I felt like a slave or something. I was like I have to do it, right? And so I had so many moments where like honestly, yeah, me and my mom, we would just be like literally like yelling at each other. Like, how could you do this to me? Like, how could you say that? Blah, blah. Yep. And I think it hurt me a lot in many ways that like I've had to like heal from. So that was difficult. But I think on the flip side, on positively, I think I was able to feel things emotionally that I don't think I ever would have like felt if I wasn't in that position. I think to see someone else's circumstance and to feel the love of God over their circumstance and over their life, I think bled into everything that I'm doing actually today. And I think a lot of times, like we're just like surrounded by brokenness, right? Like no matter what we do, whether it's for money, whether it's for the church, whether it's for God, like we're just surrounded by brokenness. And I think a lot of times like we can look at that and be like, oh, like everything's broken, like I'm done, like screw this, right? But I think God really took my hurt and the negative things and He actually turned it for His own glory. Because I think now that like I'm a worship director at my own church, like I think what I took from there, like I'm able to use and serve my own people today. And I think it's transformed my life in those ways.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. Kristen, what about you?
The question was.
How has being a PK affected you both negatively, positively? Like, what were some challenges, obstacles that you faced? And
I think I'll I'll start with positives.
Yeah.
I feel kind of vulnerable because
This is
like,
very cool.
This is like my dad's church, and I was literally, when he planted it, I was in my mom's womb, and so it's a little older than me. It's like 22 years old or 21 years old.
Yeah.
And so I think positives. I feel like I had a great foundation in terms of like growing up in the church, and I had great teachers, great mentors, great leaders surrounded me, especially in children's ministry and especially in youth group time. And so I feel like a great foundation because my dad planted the church. And I'm really grateful for all of that. I think in terms of negatives or something that like was a little hard for me too as a PK or like MK, or if your guys' parents serve in the church too, it could be hard too, is like the pressure. The pressure to almost act a certain way, the pressure to serve a certain amount, the pressure to be like the perfect type of Christian. And by like having all these like rules of you can't do this, you can't do that, or else if everyone looks at you, they're gonna have a bad impression of the church, a bad impression of me, or bad impression of like, it's almost like all of it falls on our responsibility as the child, which I feel like is a little unfair, but I think in many ways too, like when I look at like pastors or even missionaries or even just people in the church, we're all just human. We're all just people at the end of the day too. And so, I think, I did experience a lot of, well, growing up, I think I did experience like quite a bit of pressure to serve a lot and to kind of be like the builders of the youth group of what it is now today. But also it was like a responsibility that I had no choice necessarily, because it was kind of given to me. Because I was the pastor's kid. And so I think in many ways it was hard, but also I'm looking back and there's still a lot of fruit that came from that, and I think I am the way that I am because of all of that. And I had so many great moments too, serving and being a part of the youth group and being part of like the groundwork of the church plant too. Definitely good things and bad things, but
for sure.
Yeah.
I'm so appreciative of you guys opening up because like I know a lot of PKs. My best friend is PK, and like what I've noticed is that they're either like they overcome like the struggles and challenges, and they like figure it out, they heal, and like they do really well. But I also know a lot who are like they just like cut themselves off from like Christianity. They're done. Like they're just like they're very different people, and they don't heal. Like there's a lot of brokenness and hurt that they carry, and a lot of people that I know like haven't like worked that through. And so like I get nervous like just by that question being asked, like, oh shoot, like you know what I mean, it could go either way, I feel like, but I think just kind of hearing your guys' like journey in that is like super like refreshing and super encouraging. Yeah, so I really appreciate you guys sharing that, because like even like PKs, like I'm scared to ask that question, right? Because like of the journey that they went through, and like you're unpacking, like you're going there, right? There's a lot to uncover there. So thank you for asking that, Noah. I'm glad that you asked that, so I don't have to ask it. Anyone else have a question for Kristen and Danny? All right, I'm gonna ask one more question. This is a complete curveball, because at this point, when I notice a kid starting to like fall asleep, I have to throw in a relationship question in there, because like this is what instantly wakes him up, right?
That's crazy.
I know it's crazy. All right, Caleb. All right, wow, dude, you like killed the excitement here, man. I was gonna go there. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
For Danny, as a bass player, how did you get a girlfriend?
Let's go. Yeah. Yes, he went there. Yo, hey Caleb, you sit right here, bro. Yo, he's cooking. Yo, he's cooking. Yo. Sheesh.
Yeah, a magician never shares a secret. So if you're a bass player, I'm sorry.
You gotta learn more instruments.
You gotta diversify, Caleb. Yeah, sometimes you play the keys and sometimes you play the bass. You never know.
Oh.
I don't know how to answer that.
Oh man.
Wait, are you a bass player? Is that why? Oh, I'm sorry.
He's asking for a friend.
Yeah, he's asking for a friend. Yeah, he knows a lot of bass player friends.
Unfortunately, this is like the only time I've ever played bass at a retreat. Every other time, I don't play anything else. I just play guitar. So.
Yeah, you catfish.
Yeah, I catfish.
Oh.
All right. We're good, right?
Oh man.
No curveballs.
He's learning. I don't think so. He's learning getting a boyfriend.
All right, but there is hope, Caleb. There is hope. I promise you. Yeah. Okay, so there's our. Yeah. So there's our relationship question of the day. So what time? So
Okay, Joey.
okay, all right. Do we have one more? What? All right. Oh yeah, go ahead. Oh, we got two.
Yes.
I'm already here. Go.
What's your favorite worship song? Just in general, what's your favorite worship song?
Woo!
Sorry, repeat the question.
What's your favorite?
Don't tell him.
What's your favorite worship?
Yeah, what's your favorite worship song? Is the question. Anything that Danny leads.
You go first. I don't know.
Dang, this is a tough one.
I genuinely don't know.
Really?
There's a song that I wish I wrote. I really wished I wrote. There's a song called "Washed" by Upper Room.
Oh,
I don't know. I just really wished I wrote that song.
wow.
Yeah, that's it. You have anything? Next question.
No, next question. That,
Okay.
that was hard. There's too many.
Really? Pick one,
Something
Kristen.
I'll tell you.
All right, bet. Dang. Annabelle, you had a question?
That was my question.
That was your question too? Dang.
Oh, least favorite?
Least. Yo. Okay, this one we'll cut off in the video, okay? Egypt. Yeah, I don't know about elevation.
Don't get Elvis started on that one.
Yeah, don't even get Alvin started,
Is that the
bro.
one by Corey?
Oh, it is by Corey?
I think I know what you're talking about. That's so funny.
You take me out of my.
Oh my god. I have a friend that has like so many hot takes for
Really?
like worship.
Okay, can you name one of them?
One of them is they really, I don't want to use hate, but they really hate reckless love.
Ah. Okay, yeah. Reckless love. Yeah, what's Danny's hot take?
Okay, do you guys think it's unforeseen
I
kiss
knew you were gonna ask
or
that.
sloppy white
That's
kiss?
sloppy white. That's sloppy white kiss. That is so.
Dude, sloppy white kiss is crazy.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
wait, do you guys know what song I'm talking about?
For how he loved. For those of you guys who don't know.
Who thinks it's sloppy white kiss?
Oh wait, hold on. Real quick. Before.
Kara!
What? It's sloppy white kiss.
Oh my.
That's why they're different.
No way.
My dad.
Okay.
Okay, how about worst Christian artist? Phil Wickham.
Wait, what?
No, I'm just joking. I just because he loves Phil.
My least favorite song actually is "This Is Amazing Grace." I hate that song.
No.
It's so overplayed, man. It's so
Wow. Okay, so we're actually gonna have a new guest speaker tonight. Oh man. Oh god, this is a real hot take question because I'm so curious, so I have to ask. Okay, elevation worship, right? I don't know. Okay, we're gonna cut this from the tape, right? Okay, you can stop the recording now. I think this might be good. I don't know how deep you guys are into like the church worship scene and stuff. Elevation worship, like it's so like 50-50 for me. I struggle. because they dropped some banger songs.
Yeah.
But also, like, I don't really know how I feel about, like, no, I actually do know how I feel about Stephen Furtick, right? His name is literally on every credit for, like, every Elevation Worship song, right? And that, like, bugs me so much, because if his name wasn't there, if it was, like, Elevation Worship, cool, right? Cool. But I know, like, a lot of people have different opinions on this, which I think is awesome. It's a great conversation. But I kind of want to know, like, your take on that.
Yeah.
If you have opinions on that, because, like, I hear so many different opinions on that, and I'm just curious of what y'all think about that.
Yeah. There's so many hot takes. It's like I've heard stories where like he literally just puts his name on every song.
Yeah.
So that he can get money.
That's what I think.
Because in the worship scene, when you're like the top 1%, you can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like royalties is basically every time someone plays your song, you get like a percentage, right? But then those percentages might look small, but when they add up, they could honestly become like millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty crazy. So I've like done my own research and I've like listened to a lot of podcasts, and I'm never gonna know what's for sure true because it's not like he's my friend.
Exactly.
But like, I don't know, I think it's 50-50 too. I think that is one aspect, but I've also heard a lot of like renowned worship artists that also like give him a lot of credit. And they also say like, oh, he's one of the most amazing songwriters I've ever written with. And I've also heard a podcast where he's actually the original writer for Give Me Faith. Give me faith, trust. And I was like, oh, interesting. That's like, I'm not sure. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think for me, it's like, if everyone is cool with him putting his name on every single song, I don't know. Maybe they've come to an agreement. I don't know.
Yeah, part of me is like, I wonder if they feel like they have to, because he is like
The senior
the
pastor.
senior pastor, obviously, right? Like, he's the head boss, and part of me wonders like, okay, he contributed like one line, and that's it. Like, bam, you're like, your name's on the credit or something, right? So that thing it's always bothered me, right? So that's why when it comes to song selection for like worship, when it's like elevation, it's like, oh, it's so good, but it's like, I don't know, right? And so, but I just pay closer attention to the lyrics. If the lyrics are fine, you know, and just a survey. Who knows who Stephen Furtick is? Exactly, right? Exactly. So maybe that's why like I'm a little more like it's all good.
We'll have a private conversation.
We'll have a private conversation about this
We'll
one.
deep into that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, Annabelle.
Can I narrow the pool? What's your favorite hymn?
Dang. I feel like that's even harder. Favorite hymn.
It's an old one. It's an old song. Sorry.
Dude, there's only one right answer. Only one right answer. What's the right answer? Chris is looking up him right now.
Top 10 hymns.
I think one that marked me is like the classic In Christ Alone. I didn't really grow up on hymns. So when I went to Biola, they sing so many hymns.
They love hymns, dude.
And I was like, dude, this is not it. But I just remember I was having like a moment with God, and they sang In Christ Alone. And I was just like following. I wasn't even singing. I was just following the lyrics. And then when they went to that verse 3, like I literally out of nowhere was like, boom. Oh shoot! Like that's actually really powerful. Yeah. So that's like probably one of my.
Dude, that's a
And
thing.
doxology is amazing too.
Doxology's good. I love doxology.
I think a couple of my favorites is Jesus Paid It All.
Oh
That's so good. And then, so I'm looking up a list because I forgot the names. Another one, I would say, Give Thanks is another one.
I love him. I sing it every November. Every November we sing it.
That one is so good. And then It Is Well With My Soul. And then I also grew up on As the Deer. Yeah.
See,
That's mine, Kristen. All right.
Yeah. As the Deer.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so good. Hey, we're good. Hey, can we clap it up for Danny and Kristen one more time? Wow, thank you so much, you guys. You guys are awesome. Man.